Hello, testing, testing, one, two, three. Okay, so I'm very late to streaming this or sharing this post or doing this stream in general. But for the past few years, if you're not familiar with the channel, I've been sort of doing Game of the Year discussion, top 10 list sort of blog pieces that I stream and read through. So this year, I had intended to be ready by the first week of January, but it just didn't really roll out that way or didn't really work out that way. So we're going to be doing this in two parts. One stream will be tonight, and it's probably going to be pretty quick. It could be like about a half hour to 45 minutes, if that, depending on how long I get, how long it takes me to read through what I wrote, at least for this sort of retrospective on the year that was 2022 when it comes to the games that I've played. Just some general thoughts on the year. But the top 10, sort of top 20 list proper won't be until now in my head, will be Thursday. I had said originally, I tweeted on my Twitter account that I would be doing them this past weekend, but I just didn't get the energy for it or get in the right mindset. I was also still sort of finishing my writing a little bit, or kind of like putting some final touches on both my top 10 list, the ordering of things, in addition to this post here, which I'm just calling, and I've been calling it this for the past X amount of years, I believe, if I go look back on some of my old blog pieces, but like gaming in 2022 in review. So if I just read my little introduction here, out of that. So again, if you're not familiar with my channel, I also have a personal gaming blog I've been writing for about 5 years in, and I usually just share my thoughts on the games that I play and finish throughout the year. My goal each year is to write at least 2 to 3 paragraphs on every game that I finish, and I do quarterly blog posts. So for quarter 1, 2, 3, and 4, any game that I happen to finish um, and roll credits on, whether it's like 100% completion or if I just beat it, if it's like a really ridiculously big commitment sort of game, like an RPG or something like that. Regardless, if I just roll the credits on something, I try to write 2 to 3 paragraphs and kind of talk about things um, generally about the game. Just, if I liked it, how long did it generally take me? What did I do in it? If I like 100%ed it, or if I just finished it and just kind of put it back on the shelf, or uninstalled it or whatever. But that's generally what I do in terms of writing for each quarter of the year. And I tend to do the individual streams for each quarter of the year as I read through those blog posts. And all of that gets archived on my YouTube channel. So both the blog, the writing portion, and the video archive uh, throughout the year. At least this is what I've planned in my head going forward. When I can do this, should be archived for you to read or watch both on the blog and the YouTube channel. So that's all linked from the main bio page for this channel. All right, so games or gaming in 2022. I just have like a little introduction here. I like, honestly, like the last year or so, it's been an embarrassment of riches. So 2022 continued to be an embarrassment of riches, and like last year, the release calendar was mostly carried by mid-tier releases from established franchises, strong indie titles, and all of the in-between. The AAA games were pretty good too. I wanted to share a few more thoughts on the games that didn't quite make the top 10 list, however, including my loss levels, which I'll explain in a little bit, my favorite DLCs, so my favorite downloadable content or expansions that came out for games that have already existed, ongoing games, so like an MMO or like a live service game that I happen to be playing, and other categories that didn't quite have a place to call home. So this is more of like a everything outside of my top 10 list proper kind of gets dumped into this post because I don't know where else to put these thoughts or some of these categories. If I included all of this in the game of the year discussion properly, I would be sitting here talking for like 2 hours. And it's kind of, I've found my quarterly posts, reading through them live while streaming, if I happen to have finished like a dozen or so games in a quarter, kind of reading through whatever rant or like block of text I just throw down, and I barely edit, and I kind of edit it and correct it live while I'm reading through the stream. That's like pretty taxing on me, and it kind of knocks me out. I didn't realize how talking continuously, like live on stream, how like exhausting that is. So I figured, again, kind of like what I mentioned at the start of the stream, I'm going to split it up in two separate streams, one tonight, one hopefully Thursday night, if not this coming Sunday. And if not this weekend for whatever reason, my final deadline for getting whatever thoughts I had about gaming in 2022 out and about will have to be done by the end of the month, because I'm not going into February still thinking about 2022 games and trying to like wrap my head around like the thoughts that I had for the games that I played. Now, with that said, um, I think generally, and it's something I've sort of aligned more with the Easy Allies. If you're familiar with them, they are a independent gaming outlet for that's been around for 5 or 6 years at this point. Former game trailers, and they're people that have been in the industry to some capacity. And they have a Twitch channel and a YouTube channel, and they make content, specifically gaming content. But they do their, like, a lot of websites and a lot of outlets and groups, independent groups. Most of these, like whether it's Kind of Funny Games or Giant Bomb or MinMax, which I also really like. MinMax and Easy Allies are probably my favorite. Then maybe Giant Bomb in terms of Game of the Year discussions. I'm trying to think of who else does it. Nextlander, I also like, who they've split off from Giant Bomb. They were previously Giant Bomb. And the Firescape crew, which again is kind of former. Dan Reichert is part of. He's now back to Giant Bomb, but he was formerly Giant Bomb as well. But like, there's at least 4 to 5 gaming groups or websites or independent outlets that do Game of the Year discussions, and they all do them at different times of the year. And I found that I've sort of aligned with Easy Allies in terms of when they do it. So they wait until like mid to late January, at least for the past few years, from my understanding, to talk about their Game of the Years or their Game of the Year discussion for the previous year. So for them, it allows them to like breathe a little bit into the new year, since the January release calendar isn't ever really that packed most years. Now, I think this January already has some like nice little like indie games here and there. One of which I've already finished, and I streamed on my channel, and I already uploaded to my YouTube channel. But January's already packed with like a bunch of independent, smaller games and some big budget games towards the end of the month. But so again, Easy Allies, they kind of wait until end of January to discuss their Game of the Year thoughts. So it gives you time to maybe finish up a few games from the previous year that you want to talk about or share thoughts on, and it just kind of lets you kind of breathe and think about like the ordering. Even though lists are just fun and they're silly at the end of the day, they don't really matter. I'll just say this: I've been sort of what's the word I'm looking for? I've been reordering my top 10 list over the past like 2 days. So that's also why my top 5, I'm not like confident about, or I'm not like super comfortable with. Like I keep thinking, like I shift a few games around like in the 2 to 4 slots. Not that it matters. Lists are all just sort of like arbitrary, and they don't, one day I could be thinking one game means a lot to me, then the next day I wake up and I'm like, oh my god, this game was so fucking cool, like it was my favorite game last year. So at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. All right, so let's get on with 2022. So I have what are called, oh my god, this editing block, something I've coined for the past couple years called lost levels of 2022. Now, lost levels are games I started during the year, but dropped for one reason or the other. The games that make this list could be both new and old, just so long as I started them and fell off during the current year. So I keep track of, or I try to, every time I start a game within the current year, I write it down in like a draft on a blog piece here, like on WordPress for my blog site. And then I also add it to an Excel that tracks everything that I finished during the year and everything. So if I start a game, say, like I started a few games already in 2023, and whether or not, if I don't finish them by the end of 2023, they get thrown into this Lost Levels, which is kind of like a play on the Super Mario Brothers 2, like Japanese version. That was, or sorry, yeah, Super Mario Brothers 2 was technically Lost Levels or Super Mario Brothers Lost Levels. Um, my personal Lost Levels are just games that I started during the year and just fell off or stopped or got distracted or just never came back to. So I want to give them some place to talk about them, and that's what this is. All right, so I'm just going to read through it. I keep forgetting to cancel my Apple Arcade subscription, so I got the opportunity to play Yu Suzuki's delightfully weird Air Twister, which I'm super bummed about because I really like this game, and I just hate turning on my Apple Arcade or my Apple TV device to access like my games on there. And um, but there's like some really good exclusive stuff, and Air Twister is like a really cool. Well, I'll just keep reading. It's like Space Harrier meets Panzer Dragoon, and it has ridiculously good soundtrack. This soundtrack, by the way, this was another category I wish I could do, or I wish I made time to write about. I really wanted to do like a soundtrack of the year, or like my favorite music from the games that I played this year. I just personally have trouble writing about my thoughts on music. I think it's like one of the hardest things to a kind of talk about or even write about if you're not like musically inclined. And I try to find like I want to be knowledgeable about it, but I'm not like a musician, so um, I talk more about like how it makes me feel or like the moments in games that have tracks that accompany those moments that make me like that really stood out to me. Like that's where I want to kind of want to go with music discussions when I'm talking about like game soundtracks, while also being like somewhat knowledgeable on like maybe the instruments that are being used or like the certain parts of the song or of a track that like there's like a defined term for that. uh like in heavy metal kind of terminology, when there's a drop or a bass drop or something like that. That's what I would like to get to. But also streaming game music on a Twitch channel probably would give me copyright strikes. So that's why I also kind of leaned away from not writing about game music this year or any year. When I actually streamed Air Twister and it's on my channel. And my whole VOD got muted like 4 times because the soundtrack to this Air Twister game, that's the Apple Arcade icon for the game, uh, has either licensed music or remix tracks of either licensed music or like public domain music, or but it sounds like weird Queen, like it sounds like lost Queen music. Like it's ridiculous. Like every track in Air Twister has like lyrics, and the soundtrack's just completely out of control. So Air Twister is sort of a run-based game with light character progression and a ton of unlockables, but I only managed to make it halfway through the game before I got distracted by other things. I did like it a lot from the little I played, and if I managed to finish it before the end of the year, it may have made my top 10 list for 2022. I really, really like this game, and I wanted to include it on my list just kind of out of like, who the fuck's talking about Air Twister? Because I think it's really cool. Um, I love Ace Team, and the Eternal Cylinder conceptually speaks to me on so many levels. You play as tiny alien creatures just trying to survive on their home planet, while a giant metal cylinder follows them from behind, crushing everything in its path. I'm not too hot on survival games, but the Eternal Cylinder is certainly a hybrid of many genres, and the parts of the game that don't involve resource gathering and roguelike elements I really appreciate. I played it for a few hours, but it fell by the wayside like I'll just say many other games in 2022. Again, games that are considered lost levels, they could be new releases from 2022, so like new games that I just happened to start but didn't finish, or they could be older games from like previous years that I started that I also didn't finish. So Eternal Cylinder I think came out 2 years ago, but like the PS5 upgraded version came out in 2022, so it's kind of a 2022 game. I don't know. Square Enix released what feels like 100 games in 2022, and I didn't finish a single one of them. I picked up most of their releases because I don't know any better. I started a handful of them over the course of the year. I finished 2 character stories from Live Alive, Square Enix's remaster of the 1994 NES release that never saw the light of day in the West until now. Kind of a uh, mouthful. I finished the first two chapters in Valkyrie Elysium, finished the prologue chapter in the Dio Field Chronicle, and played a bit of the demo of Triangle Strategy. Oops, I didn't bold this. So I bold all of my, like, all of the games specifically in my writing, which also allows you to carry your progress forward to the full release. I also started, there's so many Square Enix games, it's ridiculous. I also started Harvestella, but I'm only a few hours in and my farm looks pitiful. I really want to play all of these games, including Stranger of Paradise, Final Fantasy Origin, which I installed and never launched. But who has the time for all of this? Like, there was a period, like, once one of these games came out, I don't know which the first one was. I think it was Triangle Strategy and Stranger of Paradise, Final Fantasy Origin were first, and there was a few months apart from them. Maybe even 1 month. I think one of them was like February, one of them was March. I think Triangle Strategy was March. But then there was a kind of a break over the summer, but Live Alive came out over the summer, I think, and then it was just like a fucking storm of releases, like Valkyrie Elysium, Tactics Ogre Reborn, Dio Field Chronicle, Star Ocean 6 or Star Ocean the Divine Force, Harvestella, like, and now a month after Harvestella, we're getting Forspoken like in a few weeks or a week, or I think it's a week at this point. I don't know if there was a reason why Square had to release all of these games as quickly as they did. Some financial quarterly reporting or something. I don't know. But these are all like, you know, some of these are probably 30 to 50, 50 to 100 plus hour games. Like Harvestella is a big game. I know that. Stranger of Paradise, I think, is a pretty big game. Triangle Strategy can't be short. Live Alive and Valkyrie Elysium are a little shorter. I would imagine Star Ocean's a big game. Tactics Ogre is a huge game. They're ridiculous. Now, I will say, if I wasn't playing my MMO live service game choice this year, I probably maybe would have found more time for some of these. I started Star Fox and Super Mario Kart from the SNES library on Nintendo Switch Online during one of my plane rides from California to Pennsylvania. I started and finished the middle route in Star Fox, but to consider the game completed in my head, I wanted to do all three routes. I haven't played SNES Star Fox game. Ooh, I haven't played the SNES Star Fox game since I was a kid, and I quickly realized it's not a good plane game considering the frame rate. For Super Mario Kart, I earned a gold trophy or two in some of the cups on the lowest CC. I wanted to get gold trophies in all cups on all difficulty levels before I considered it completed for the year, but I never went back to them after that one plane trip. Both games are still fun, but I definitely prefer some of the more recent entries from both series, though. I surprisingly played a lot of Kirby's Dream Buffet too. I believe I stopped playing around level 70 or so, but I wrote more about it here. Spoilers, it's mostly forgettable. So, yeah, I mean, the two Kirby games that released in 2022, obviously Return to Dreamland, or not Return to Dreamland, Kirby and the Forgotten Land was exceptional and awesome. Kirby's Dream Buffet was sort of like rode the tails of it a few months after that game's release. And it was just like a fun little multiplayer driven, or it's kind of online only, uh, sort of not battle royale game. Regard if anyone cares enough to even read this, if you read the blog post after the fact, there's a link to where I talked more about Kirby's Dream Buffet. So you can just, and I actually made a video of it on my YouTube channel, or there's a YouTube video about Nintendo Switch and kind of reflecting on it, and I talk about Kirby's Dream Buffet. So just go watch all that or read that. I started Demon Souls by Blue Point Games at the start of the year, but then Elden Ring came out. I've already beaten Demon Souls back on the PS3 10 plus times between multiple regions, so I've done my time. I would like to play through the game properly again, so perhaps I'll try to make time for the remake in 2023. Metal Hellsinger looks like a Doom 2016 / Doom Eternal mod, but it's actually a rhythm-based FPS with licensed metal music. I played the first 3 levels of Metal Hellsinger, but I never went back to it. I didn't dislike any of the music I heard, but it also wasn't resonating with me for whatever reason. As a progressive metalhead, I'd be singing a different tune if I was blasting demons to the beats of Between the Buried and Me, Periphery, or The Contortionist, though. There's some of my favorite metal bands. Like, I don't. I gotta give that game like its fair due. And the music, I think, the music plus the gameplay probably makes the music like more enjoyable, or the tracks of the bands they chose to um, make songs for that game. But like, I'm not like a traditional metalhead, I guess. I like progressive metal a lot, and I like my favorite type of music is progressive metal, and like all the kind of silly subgenres like gent, just DJENT. And speaking of Periphery, their latest album that's coming out is called Gent is Not a Genre, I think is the name of their album, which is like funny. The Contortionist, Polyphia, Animals as Leaders, like that's my kind of music, or like my kind of metal music. And I couldn't even tell you what the bands were in Metal Hellsinger, but like I know they got Surge from System of a Down, and like I liked System of a Down when I was a kid. And people were freaking out about how like good that song was that's in that game where he sang to it. But I'm not like I don't know. I'm not like a huge System of a Down, and I like Sir, like I like his voice, but I'm not like obsessed about it. I also started Signalis around Halloween, played it for about 2 hours and never went back. It's one of my biggest regrets of 2022, considering it's essentially a love letter to PS1, PS2 era survival horror games, games like Resident Evil and Silent Hill. I'm assuming it would have made my top 10 list if I managed to finish it. I love nearly everything about it from the little I've played, so hopefully I can carve out a full playthrough in 2023. Yeah, honestly, Signalis is like everything about this game. It's like my kind of shit. But I don't know. I just it didn't work. It didn't like the cards weren't dealt correctly when this game came out. Like I was either in the middle of other things or getting ready to travel, or some the holidays were like shortly after because I was playing this around Halloween. So and I was playing on Xbox and I didn't have my Xbox where I went. So like it just wasn't meant to be last year. But I know I would like it. I keep starting Downwell, thinking I'll one day complete a full run of the game since it's short and you literally just make your way down a well, but it's not an easy game. I love the look and concept of the game, even though roguelike games aren't usually my thing. My last attempt to finish the game in 2022 was the furthest I've gotten. Though I've also started Citizen Sleeper twice now, but almost fell asleep while playing the game. I don't mean that in a negative way. Visual novels aren't usually my cup of tea, but I've been known to play them from time to time. I keep hearing great things about the game too, and I really like the cold, isolated sci-fi setting, so hopefully I'll find time for it again soon. I don't know how to pronounce this still. Euden or Euden Chronicle Rising, the companion prequel game of sorts to the soon to be released Euden Chronicle 100 Heroes. It seems like a competent 2D action RPG, but it became a bit too repetitive too quickly, so I stopped playing after a few hours. I did like the character designs though, and it started to get me more excited for the proper Suikoden successor, or Suikoden. I don't know how the fuck. Why are both of these both of these series, these game names have names that like no one can pronounce? I've heard people. I like saying Suikoden, but I hear most people say Suikoden. I don't know what the fuck the proper way is to say it. I'm sure it's easy to find someone on YouTube saying Suikoden. I don't know. Suikoden sounds like shit to me. I like Suikoden, so I'm gonna keep calling it Suikoden. And then the successor, Uden Chronicle, or Yiden or Euden. I don't know. These names are horrible. Telling you, like the Dio Field Chronicle. What does that even mean? And triangle strategy. Let's not even get started on like the what is it team Asano. I don't know like the I forget the actual like developer or the company that works on like the 2D HD 2D HD games that Square's releasing, like the Bravely Default, Octopath Traveler Peoples or whatever. I think they're somewhat related to this game. The names are horrible. There's Triangle Strategy and Octopath Traveler, various day life. I don't even have that written here. Like what the fuck? So yes, Uden Chronicle isn't a great name either. The Trine games are comfort food to me. They're somewhat generic 2D platformers set in a traditional fantasy setting, but they're always gorgeous to look at. I've completed both the original Trine and Trine 3 artifacts, the Artifacts of Power, at 100%, but I've never played Trine 2 or the latest game, the completion, yet. Um, I started Trine 4, the Nightmare Prince, earlier in the year, but only managed to finish a handful of stages before dropping it. I love old school side scrolling vertical arcade shooters, games like Gradius, R-Type, and Darius games, for example. I also picked up G Darius HD earlier in the year, but I only played it for an hour or so before dropping it. I typically like to play or learn arcade shmups on different or on default settings with a limited amount of continues, but G Darius HD doesn't have those types of settings and instead allows you to pump an indefinite amount of credits when you boot the game. When you boot up the game. That's like kind of a pet peeve of mine, and it's like a really not a big deal. Like most people would probably be like, I don't understand what your problem is, but like when I'm playing a retro game, especially an arcade game that was an arcade port to the consoles, if your game originally took like literal quarters or credits when you inserted a quarter, or even like a game from the NES era that was like a one sitting game, so you have like default amount of continues or lives. Like I typically like to play games like at default settings. If I run out of continues, I start the game over. Like I don't like using save states or anything like that. Nothing against them. I just don't like to play old games like that. So GDARS HD, like I'm pretty sure like before you can even hit the title screen or get to the options, you just pump like a credit in, and there's nothing stopping you from pumping like 99 credits, and there's nothing limiting you. There's no, I don't know if there's even any like unlockables or trophies for like beating the game legit. It's just like have, and again, who cares? It's like a re-release of an old arcade shooter. Like you make your own rules if you want to make your own rules, or you just have fun and play it for whatever, however they wanted you to re-experience like an old game. A lot of mental gymnastics, if that makes sense. I finished No More Heroes 1 and 2 back on the Wii when they originally released. I've been dying to play No More Heroes 3, but apparently Traffic Strikes Again No More Heroes is almost required to play prior for story reasons. I've started Traffic Strikes Again twice now since its release, and I always get through the first level and then drop it. The levels just feel way too long and the gameplay isn't very interesting. I downloaded Sonic Origins at launch, finished a few zones in Sonic the Hedgehog, checked out some of the extras, and then never went back to the collection. The game launched with some problems, and I'm not sure if any of the issues were ever patched or fixed. Seems like I have a habit of starting the same games year after year, playing for about an hour or so, and then dropping them. Panzer Paladin, unfortunately, has met a similar fate. It's the type of game that I typically adore, but I can't seem to stick with it for whatever reason. To stick with it. A few more. Game Freaks Pokemon Legends is another name. Is it Arceus or Arceus? Or Arceus? Arceus? I say Arceus. It's the latest entry in the long-running franchise, and it was the first truly open-world Pokemon game prior to Scarlet and Violet's release. It's impossible not to compare it to the likes of The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, but it also has shades of Monster Hunter. I haven't played through and finished a Pokemon game since I was a kid, and Red, Blue, Yellow were the last ones I finished. That's redundant. Let's do the last ones I completed. I'm still a completionist at heart. The fact that most mainline Pokemon games leading up to Arceus released as two paired games always left me with choice paralysis. I ultimately just shied away from the series because as time passed, it felt too overwhelming to commit to. I picked up Arceus at launch, and by the end of 2022, I only managed to log about 10 hours or so. I do love chucking multiple Pokeballs at monsters in real time, seeing all of the experience bars fill up for every little thing you do. I definitely understand why it can be addicting. Oh, and the skyboxes looked good too. Yeah, the you actually see it kind of on the title screen. It doesn't look exactly like that in the game, obviously, because it's just like a key art for the cover. So maybe I'll finish it in 2023. Pokemon games, like they take, again, I haven't finished one since I was a kid, like on the Game Boy, like the original games. So, like just like any other RPG, they either take me way too long to get through, and I just kind of lose interest in, especially Pokemon. Like I want to get back into them, but they just always just kind of fall asleep playing. All right, and finally, Dot Emu's Windjammers reboot is an extreme sports frisbee game Released originally by Data East. I'm not quite sure if I understand how to play the game, as there are a handful of advanced throwing techniques I haven't wrapped my head around yet. The goal is to toss a frisbee disc, into the goal net. The goal slash net has certain sections that are worth 3 or 5 points. The single player arcade mode AI is fairly challenging, even on medium difficulty. The online is completely dead, though, and it seems impossible to find matches today. But given the fact that I'm not playing the game during its initial release window, it's no surprise. It still begs the question why developers feel the need to include online play with online only trophies when they know it'll be impossible for certain players to earn them after so much time has passed. But this feels more like a relic of its time. I like the look and feel of the game, but I don't think Windjammers is ultimately for me, though. I don't know how I feel about Windjammers. Like, the second game, I think, technically came out this year, and I picked it up, and it's sealed in one of my closets on a shelf. And they just seem like either you have to have like a close group of friends locally to play it, because online is like, forget it. Like, if you're not playing that game within the first month, I would imagine like Windjammers 2 is probably dead now already. Windjammers 1, you can't even like, it would just search indefinitely for like forever. I mean, I'm not sure when Windjammers reboot came out. Originally it's been probably like 5 years now, if not more. So again, these are all of my lost levels, and I think I accounted for everything. So these were games that I started, but I just dropped and didn't finish. So I just wanted to have like some words for them, just so they weren't lost to time or lost to my thoughts before they got overwritten by other games. So I'll probably come back to a lot of these over time, whether or not it takes me years to finish. Especially like a lot of these RPGs, like fucking forget about all of these Square Enix games. Like it's insane. But a lot of these I probably will come back to. All right, next up, next category, my favorite DLCs of 2022. So I really enjoyed the Resident Evil Villages DLC Shadows of Rose from the Winters expansion. I streamed my complete playthrough of the new campaign on my Twitch channel around Halloween. You can watch the archive here for my full impressions. Shadows of Rose more or less repurposes areas from the original game, but puts you in control of Rose, Ethan's daughter, who's cursed with powers she doesn't want. The game itself plays similar to the castle portions of Village, but you now have psychic abilities that allows you to clear flower-like pods of goop that block your progress. The house Beneviento, Benevito. I'm probably mispronouncing that as well. The House Beneviento remix, in particular, is probably one of the scariest sequences found in any Resident Evil game to date. It's honestly like the one of the best things I've seen any Resident Evil game do. That section from the original Village was already really cool, and it was probably like kind of it's like classic RE horror. And the remix that they did in the Shadows of Rose DLC. By the way, there's probably gonna be like light spoilers in a lot of these Game of the Year discussions. So on this stream and my next one, where I do my top 10, just gonna be kind of like active open spoilers. But there's in the this section in the DLC that they redid, which is so fucking cool. There were like these mannequins that mechanically, if your camera was looking at them, so if the character was looking at them, they would freeze and stop in place. But the second you turned around and started to like walk away from them, they would chase after you, and you would just hear like their little mannequin like clip clop feet behind you. And if your back was turned to them and they caught up to you, it was like an instant game over, and it was like a really scary sort of like game over death sequence. Um, just bring it up. Let me try to find. So I did this full playthrough. Where was Oh wait, there was. This is where it was at. Where do I first notice? Yeah, it's game over if they catch. It's just such a cool sequence. Dude, there's no checkpoint. Are you kidding me? Yeah, so if you have to keep your eyes on them and you have to like kind of make your way through like these hallways and they just chase you from behind. It's so fucking cool. It's one of the best things in I think in any Resident Evil game like ever. And it's arguably like I think even cooler than what the original um Resident Evil Village had, like the base game. And here's them capturing you. It's really cool. This is ridiculous. Oh, oh my god. They better give me a checkpoint. So cool. One of my favorite moments of the year. And it was from DLC. Um, I completed the DLC once, but I still had more questions than answers. I also did not explore the new Mercenaries additions, nor did I check out the new third person mode that was added to the base game. At this point, I'm ready for Resident Evil 9, and I can't wait to see where this ridiculous story goes next. Another DLC I played, and it was kind of a bummer, or it was like a mixed bag, but sort of a bummer ultimately. Toem's Basto update or expansion was excellent and also free. Accessible once you complete the game, but it's essentially just more of what makes Toem a joy to play. The new area brings a day-night cycle, which changes the tides, allowing the player to access new areas. There's also a new accessory that allows you to fire water balloons from your camera. You're still mostly taking pictures of creatures and island. Oh, should be taking pictures of creatures and island folk to progress, but there's some fun mini games thrown into the mix too. This new DLC is really good, but I got hit with a bug that caused my 100% save to become corrupted. The developers had no way of fixing this, but they did update the game to work around the issue to a degree. Unfortunate, I had to experience this glitch as it really soured my feelings on the whole package. So I actually like even tweeted the developer and they answered my message like privately, gave him pictures and like everything that like what happened with my save file, and it's something that was happening to other people, and they just said, um, it kind of blew me away that there was no way to fix it. Like they updated the game and they added a free DLC expansion, but for whatever reason, for some people, it completely like hard locked and corrupted your save file, and I got hit by it. So they did patch it again to have like this workaround. But it was just messy. So Tome's a very cool game if you haven't played it. Just watch out for your save file getting corrupted. Bug Snacks is the island or the Isle of Big Snacks free DLC. Simply more bug snacks but bigger. The DLC takes place during the middle of the game's story, and it provides some additional world building and characterization for some of the villagers. The island itself can be accessed from an existing save file, and the objectives in the new area make use of your tools in interesting ways. The buggy ball, for example, is used to navigate wall puzzles scattered around the island. The draw of the Isle of Big Snacks is the larger-than-life Bug Snacks variants, however. How you capture them is also unique to the DLC and provides a challenging prospect for both new and returning players. Coming back to Bug Snacks felt great. I didn't realize I've missed these characters so much, and their writing and dialogue is as funny and well written as it was in the base game. It was either between this game, this DLC, the Isle of Big Snacks, and the Shadows of Rose. Probably my two favorite uh, DLCs that I played, or expansions, updates, whatever you want to call it. The DLC also adds customizable options for your player housing. By completing hundreds of requests for the villagers, you can earn new doormats, wallpaper, and furniture to furnish your home. These additional quests ask the player to perform a variety of tasks, including capturing, donating, or feeding certain bug snacks to particular villagers, or even shooting hoops and making baskets with the basketball. It's a simple addition, but it makes the game feel more content complete, almost as if they were ideas the developers had intended for the game at launch. I completed the DLC and unlocked all of the extra trophies outside of Live, Laugh, Hut, which requires you to complete a good portion. Italicize that. A good portion of the request to earn enough furniture to fully furnish your house. Although it feels like there's an endless amount of side quests now, there's enough here to keep me busy in Snacksburg until Bug Snacks 2 hopefully releases. Yeah, Bug Snacks was made my top 10 list in 2020. I think it came out. That was a pandemic game. That was a hard end of 2020, like weird feeling holiday pandemic experience for me. And I love one of my favorite games ever, easily. And the DLC was cool. The new things they added were nice. Made the game just feel, it already felt like a complete experience, but the DLC kind of made it even feel better. And it was free, so I'm hoping they're either working on something new again. This developer, what are they called? Something Young Horses? The fuck's their name? But they did the Octodad game before. But Bugsnax is I prefer, and I hope we get an actual sequel because I think there's a lot they can do in this universe that they made. So those were my favorite DLCs that I happened to play. There may have been. I have to look at my list again. I don't think there's really any other DLC that I happened to play. Um, so I would say Shadows of Rose and Isle of Big Snacks are kind of tied to me. I don't know if I could pick a winner. And then Toem, even though it bugged out on me and it kind of deleted my save file, it was still really good. It's a really great game. All right, so my favorite ongoing game of 2022, unfortunately, or stubbornly, Destiny 2, and the latest expansion, which came out last February, The Witch Queen. So now that we're entering year 6 of Destiny 2, it continues to be my primary and begrudgingly favorite MMO live service game. I've been playing Destiny 2 since launch, and I haven't really taken any long breaks, although I have played less Destiny 2 in 2022 than I have in previous years, with 2020 being the time I spent most with the game due to the pandemic. I've been part of a clan on PlayStation for years now, but also play with random people on Xbox or dedicated Discords in a pinch. Unfortunately, I still rarely reach out to people to run endgame content, and I've never been part of any primary fireteam group, so I've mainly stuck to whatever solo content I could complete over the past year or so. I'm hoping the LFG Discord integration will make grouping with people easier once it's implemented. The Witch Queen is easily the best campaign to date, though I played through the entirety of it solo on legendary difficulty, and at times it was relatively challenging, but always fair. Outside of the final boss, which was pretty brutal by myself. I really wish I had people to play that with at the time, but just didn't work out that way. With that said, I've done most of the seasonal content in Destiny 2 post the Witch Queen, and at the time of writing this, I'm only a handful of triumphs away from obtaining the Seraph and MM22 seals, which, if you're not familiar with Destiny, this all probably sounds extra foreign or even more confusing than anything else I've talked about so far. So we're in the weeds a little bit here. I still mostly focus on seals, which are essentially character titles based on in-game achievement completion, as they typically ask the player to play most, if not all, of the content the game has to offer. All of the content the game could be currently has to offer. I'm upset that I've missed my opportunity to earn the Unbroken seal as they vaulted the chance. Hold up, me. This really does bother me. They vaulted the chance to earn it and instead changed the title to Glorious, which is now the new competitive focused Crucible seal going forward. I use seals as a guidepost of sorts, as the game can be quite overwhelming, at least in terms of what content to engage with if you're not sure what to focus on. I still think Destiny 2 is the best feeling FPS game on the market, so I guess I'll keep playing until the servers shut down. Please, Bungie, put me out of my misery sooner rather than later. I'm not really that negative on it. I just, like, I have a love-hate relationship with Destiny 2, for like a laundry list of reasons, which I think most people who've been playing it for years feel similarly about. The FOMO, fear of missing out, has gotten a bit better, and there's a link to where they've recently announced that they're no longer going to be vaulting primary, like main expansions. So like from Beyond Light, or I think from Shadowkeep and going forward, Shadowkeep, Beyond Light, Witch Queen, and now Lightfall that's coming out soon. They're all staying in the game, because if you're not familiar with Destiny, they've removed expansions and like destinations and content and quests and all sorts of things, and it's been like a big focal point in terms of like um, the conversation surrounding like the game's um, relevancy, or like the game just as a whole. Like, should you invest in Destiny 2 if you've walked away from it, or if you're still playing it, if you're looking to come back to it, like what's the viability of like even getting into the game at this point? So it's been like a centerpiece for discussion for a while now. But they've since stated that they're going to make it easier to obtain the next. Oh, wait, I jumped around a little bit. Sorry. The FOMO, fear of missing out, has gotten a bit better, but it still persists within certain pockets of the game. Iron Banner, for example, currently has an excruciating grind to obtain a shader you cannot find anywhere else in the game. They've since stated that they're going to make it easier to obtain the next time the activity rolls around, but it's still a big ask for players who might not have the time to commit. There are still quests, seals, destinations, and other content that continues to be vaulted. While I understand their reasoning for vaulting content, keeping the file size down, taking away activities people are no longer playing, game stability, etc., as someone who likes to take their time and enjoy their games at a leisurely pace, the mad rush to complete as much old content as you can before it goes away continues to fuel my anxiety, and it's not a good thing. Will I ever stop playing Destiny 2? Probably not. Or at least not until they shut down the servers, release a new IP, or make a Destiny 3. I'm looking forward to the new expansion Lightfall releasing on February 28th, 2023, so like a little over a month from now. But we'll see what year 6 of Destiny 2 will bring. The biggest problem um, with Destiny 2 is part of it's my problem, part of it's the like how Bungie's treating it, and I don't have all the answers. I don't want to pretend that I know all the answers, or that I would know what to do if I was, had the responsibility of like guiding an MMO game like this. Like, it's got to be like an impossible thing to manage and to make decisions for. Um, Sorry. So I don't know what the answer is for a game that's, it was built for older hardware, and they've had to like update the engine and update the game for like new platforms over the past 5 or 6 years. So, but like, so my problem's twofold, and I kind of split it as like a 50% and sort of like it's me that's a problem, but it's also the game. And my problem is that like I don't reach out to enough people on any of the platforms that I've engaged with people with, like to do content. Like I said, my main clan on PlayStation, most of the activities in Destiny 2, if you want to get into the end game stuff or like play for purpose, I guess you could say, um, you either need 6 people that you know and that are free and available that you can reach out to, and that can make the schedule to do raids. And the raids, if you're familiar with any MMO or online game like Warcraft, World of Warcraft, or anything like that, uh, that's kind of a big ask, even if it's just 6 people. And raids are very challenging. They're some of the best content in any game ever, I think, especially in Destiny. There's nothing like a raid in Destiny from my experience. Um, but they're also very demanding. You need to have like a lot of patience, and you need to have like people that are willing to, do something like that with you time after time, and to stay interested after all these years. It's really rough. And then on top of that, if you're not looking to do the raids, which are 6 people activities, the other end game content isn't match made either, and you need at least 3 people, and that can be just as hard. So that's where I'm at right now, is where I don't have people I can regularly commit to. And part of that's because my schedule is all over the place. Sometimes I just don't want to play at all, like one week or the next. I'm still like a single player driven person. Like I love my single player games. It's what I grew up with. It's always what I'm going to gravitate towards. So I don't want to just be playing Destiny 2, even though the content that I'm at, or the point that I'm at with the game, is where I need to be playing with like dedicated people that I have to, either they reach out to me and ask me to play, or I have to reach out to them. It's usually me reaching out than anyone asking me to play, which is frustrating, but it's really no one's fault. It's an online, ongoing game that has no end and has difficult, time consuming content that requires like willingness from other people that have their own lives and their own schedules and their own energy levels to like do this shit. So, but also on the flip side, Bungie, like I said, my biggest problem with what they've been doing is vaulting content. And while they're finally addressing and committing to not vaulting like most of the game's content, there's still currently right now there are 3 to 4. I mean, there's 3 active seasons worth of content sitting there, and by February 28th or whenever the next expansion Lightfall releases in a month or so, all that shit's gone. So there's still, and the seals, they've added seals for each season, and they usually range from like kind of a big ask to kind of demanding to like not so demanding. So some of it's not hard, but some of it's still kind of time consuming. It's like a kind of a middle ground. But again, if you want to get the most out of your seasons, if you're playing this game seasonally, and go for those seals and kind of, which basically asks you to do everything that season currently has to offer to get the most out of the game, then you got to stay on top of it. And some of that stuff again requires 3 people or 6 people. So they're going to be vaulting, not even vaulting, they're just going to be getting rid of like 3 seasons worth of activities that are currently active, in exchange for Lightfall's next 3 seasons, presumably, which will lead into the next expansion, or which might be the last expansion, I guess. I don't know. No one knows. So that's been a big debate. Obviously, the game did get too big, or it can get too big, but there's MMOs out there like WoW. You can still play like the old versions of WoW, or even Final Fantasy 14. Like all of the expansions are available, even though they've updated them and changed them and kind of like repurposed them, or whatever happened with Final Fantasy 14, or even WoW to a degree. Like most of the, from my understanding, most, if not all of the like primary expansions are available in like a lot of other MMOs, but Destiny 2, it's not. So it, I don't know what to say about it anymore. That's where I'm at with it. And finally, oh, so we have 2 more categories. So we have my physical game pickups of 2022. I'll quickly go through this. So just took pictures of like what I bought this year or what shipped this year. Now, a lot of the things I picked up this year, some of the things I ordered like a year or two ago, like I'm trying to like slow down on limited run games because they just like, I'm not happy with how they're handling some of their decisions or business decisions and their shipping problems, which some of it's out of their hands, but also some of it's just like, Jesus Christ. Um, just some of the practices I'm not fully integrate, like I don't agree with anymore. But I pre-ordered games from them like a year or 2 years ago, and I just got them this past year. So that's a lot of what's picked up here. I just say like the first quarter of the year was front loaded with big releases, games like Elden Ring, Horizon Forbidden West, Pokemon Legends Arceus, occupied most people's attention for months. Quick shout out, Marsupilami Huba Adventure was a surprise pickup for the year too. It's an incredibly competent Donkey Kong Country like that's worth playing if you're a fan of 2D platformers. Don't let the terrible name fool you. It's good. Yeah, just I got Elden Ring, Ghostwire in here, Horizon, Stranger of Paradise. There's that G Darius HD that I picked up, the Eternal Cylinder, some Switch stuff, Kirby. One of my favorite games this year, easily. Here's a lot of my limited run nonsense. Legend of Heroes, which I'll never get around to or catch up with because they're endless. Hunt Down's fucking awesome. Play it. I really wanna, I might. I'm hoping I can stream or play Battle Axe. I got that in the mail last year as well. Same with Final Vendetta and Battle Axe. I really want to stream, but I have a complicated relationship with limited run games. But I still support them to a degree since they release some rad physical editions for a lot of cool games like Hunt Down. I'm really excited to play Battle Axe and Final Vendetta in 2023. If I can ever find time to finish the slog that is Xenoblade Chronicles 2. I've been hearing nothing but great things about Xenoblade Chronicles 3, so I can't wait to rip off the seal and give it a whirl. Um, Demon Throttle was fucking awesome too. That's on my top. Won't spoil the list, but that's in my top 20. Here's some more goodies. So the Xenoblade Chronicles 3 Collector's Edition shipped separately from the like standard Switch case. I got my Bayonetta 3 collectors. My Good Life stuff came in. Sweary's The Good Life. That was a 2021 game, I think. It was all my top 10. Or honorable mentions, I forgot. Plague Tale Requiem, which is incredible. I played Sweary's The Good Life back in 2021, but my limited run games collector's edition showed up in 2022. I've used the coffee cup multiple times already. The Bayonetta 3 Collector's Edition is very nice as well. It comes with a case that holds all three of the games on Switch. I really wanted to open my copy of Mario Rabbids Sparks of Hope, but I have yet to finish Kingdom Battle, so it shall stay sealed on my shelf for the time being. Yeah, this was like a good set of things that came in. There's a lot of cool stuff here. I wore the Good Life hoodie. It's like a cat hoodie with like a hood with like cat ears, like a yellow hoodie here. I wore that during my entire stream playthrough of Devotion, which is also archived on my YouTube channel. Devotion's fucking awesome too, by the way. But no, so I didn't pick up all of this. The only pickup here was the collection that came out last year. So I just added it, like I took a picture of my whole collection. Klonoa is back, and I still can't believe it's real. I imported a European copy of the Klonoa Fantasy Reverie series since Bandai Namco did not have a physical release in North America, and I have no idea why. Pictured is my current Klonoa collection. I used to have the second game on GBA, but I believe I lost my copy in a house fire and never replaced it. I believe my Klonoa Door to Phantom Isle and Klonoa 2 Lunatia's Veil are my original copies that survived said fire, however. So yeah, these are definitely my original. I know for a fact this Klonoa is my original copy that I salvaged, and then Klonoa 2. I want to say it's my original copy. It somehow survived a house fire, but yeah, Klonoa is one of my favorite games of all time. All of most of my channel emotes on Twitch are based on Klonoa, so I was thrilled. I only played through the first Klonoa game from this collection last year, so I'm hoping that maybe I can squeeze into this year. I don't know if I'll do a full stream playthrough, but here's my last few. God of War collectors, Tactics, some Square crap, Square Enix garbage, Callisto Protocol, which I shouldn't have bought the collectors for because I was a little very disappointed with that game. I tried to pre-order the God of War Ragnarok Jotnar edition, but I accidentally ordered the collector's edition thinking that was the highest tier. By the time I realized it wasn't, the Jotnar edition was sold out. Oh well. Sort of regret ordering the Callisto Protocol Collector's Edition since I didn't really like the game in the end, so lessons learned there. Um, I streamed a little bit of this game and I finished it the other, like last week, I think it was. And I have like a lot of thoughts on it, like I do with a lot of things. So you can go check out that stream at some point. I'll be writing about it for a future for the 2023 Q1 post. And here's some miscellaneous things, some more limited run stuff. So again, a lot of this I ordered like years ago. It just happened to all show up this year. And here's my whole Xeno collection. So pictured above is more LRG releases, in addition to a few random pickups, including Sifu, which I'm dying to play. I also took a picture of my entire Xeno collection when my standard edition copy of Xenoblade Chronicles 3 arrived. The collector's edition was sent separately months later, and I haven't taken a new picture yet. So I like grabbing like my complete series or like my complete collections of series that I have and taking pictures of them. Like I love physical game media. It's the only thing I hold on to, the only thing I collect. It's the only thing I rebought after losing a lot of my collection in a fire. So I guess I'll continue to do that, even though digital, I understand, is a lot more convenient, a lot less anxiety in terms of like the burden that physical media carries with you. Like if you have to move it all, if something happens to it, yada yada yada. So, but I still enjoy picking up physical and collector's edition, if I can afford them and have the space for it and all that stuff. So, I kind of bought a lot last year, but again, like this is where most of my like leisurely resources go, like you could say. I typically don't go on like wild vacations yet. I don't buy like I don't really buy music or buy DVDs or movies anymore. So I really just like throw all myself into my gaming collection. So finally, last category, and then we're gonna wrap this up. The coulda, woulda, shouldas of 2022 are games I either had a passing interest in but never picked them up, or they're games I may have purchased but did not play whatsoever during the year. Many of these games could have made my honorable mentions top 10. There's another typo. I'm glad I caught that. Top 10 list for the year, but alas, I can't speak to them at the time of writing this. So, this is just so how I do this. This is a process I have as well. I go to the Wikipedia page for game releases. So if you go to the 2022 Wikipedia page for video game releases, you can get a monthly breakdown of most, not all releases, obviously, because there's so much junk and trash that gets released on like every platform, but it's a pretty comprehensive list of like at least very notable releases. So throughout the year, each month at the end of the month, I go through this list and I kind of cross check it with some other like release websites and calendars and such. And I just put down any game I have a passing interest in. I make a note of it, literally just a bullet list that's separated month by month, hoping that like, if it goes on sale, if I find time for it, or if I really want to play it, if I check out a trailer and I'm like, holy shit, I need to play this now. Like this is the list I refer to in terms of like what to pick up, what to buy, what to come back to, what I may have missed or what I didn't pick up. So everything in this list I haven't played at all. I may or may not own them. I just never unsealed them or put them in any of my systems or installed or anything. So I'll just quickly go through it. I'll pick a game from each month that I'm like mostly interested in. So I guess from January. Oh, Nobody Saves the World was kind of like an early indie darling last year. It's from the developer of Guacamelee, who I like. I did start it this year finally. I played like the intro dungeon and then I stopped. So it might become a lost level for next year. Um, Nobody Saves the World or Shadow Man Remastered, I'm most interested in coming back to. A lot of those other games are ports. There's Windjammers 2 again, which we talked about. From February, out of this list, it's gotta be Sifu. I just threw some pictures in to kind of break it up of like the nauseating list of games. I'm dying to play Sifu. I know it would have made my top 10 or top 20 honorable mention It's my kind of game. I never started it. I never made time for it. From March, I think it's got a it's either Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origin, which I'm also dying to play, or Moss Book 2. Because Moss Book, the first Moss game is one of my favorite PlayStation VR or VR games in general, next to Astro Bot Rescue Mission. Anything Astro related that's in VR is my favorite. From April, from this list, I didn't hear great things about it, but the Chrono Cross Radical Dreamers edition, the port of Chrono Cross would have been fun to revisit, or the House of the Dead remake, even. Those are two games that I would have been really interested in getting around to. In May, we had, oh man, May was rough. Uh, the games that I saw that came out in May that I was kind of interested in playing, me, maybe Dolmen. If you're familiar with Easy Allies, they had like a there was like a period of time where when this Dolmen game was coming out and they were obsessed with it. It kind of became an inside joke. Maybe I'd be interested in Dolmen. It's kind of like a Souls-like, I think. In June, it would be Final Vendetta and maybe the Cuphead um, DLC, the Cuphead Delicious Last Course. I really like the first or the main Cuphead game, so that would have been cool to make time for. Gotta play Final Vendetta. From July, Xenoblade Chronicles 3. Duh. I'm like, I I'm obsessed with the Xeno games. They're like some of my favorite RPG series or games or franchise, whatever. And like I'm not ready for it. I'm not Xenoblade Chronicles 2, I'm not done it yet. Nor am I done like the Future Connected or um the Torna expansion or whatever the fuck it's called. August, it would probably be Shinchan, me and the professor on summer vacation, the endless 7-day journey. Easily this game. Um, you know what else I didn't put in this gaming and review? The best review of 2022 is Tim Rogers. Um, I can't pronounce. I don't know how to fucking pronounce the game off the top of my head. But go to Tim Rogers Action Button YouTube channel, or go to Tim Rogers on Twitter. Look him up. He did a review. It's like a 6 or 8 hour video game review of this PlayStation 1 Japanese only game that's sort of based around this Shinchan game, or it's related to this to some extent. And it's like one of the best like YouTube video reviews I've ever seen for anything. But other than that, maybe like I want to get into these Spark the Electric Jester games. They look cool. Cold of the Lamb. Never finished any of the Azure Striker games. There's a lot of good stuff in August. Like Curse to Golf, Roller Drome, Arcade Paradise, Soul Hackers 2, Immortality. There's just like so much cool shit in August. Blossom Tales 2. Um, September, I would probably pick some of these games actually, or one of these games I did finish finally this year already, and it was really good. Shovel Knight Dig, um, Legend of Heroes Trails from Zero. I really want to get back into Legend of Heroes. October, Mario and Rabbids Sparks of Hope and Moustache and the Divine Forest. So it would have been cool to make time for them. November, oh god. Yeah, Tactics Ogre Reborn, Pentiment, uh Gungrave Gore, like there's like a fucking third person shooter Gungrave game that looks like the PS2 games, like the proper PS2 games. And it's on Game Pass, I think, right now. It's also on PS5 and everything. I really want to play it. I heard Pentiment's awesome. I want to check that out still. Tactics Ogre Reborn it looks like an awesome remake or kind of re-release of PSP version. Tactics Ogre is like one of the best strategy RPGs ever. So then finally in December, we Chained Echoes. Some of these I actually did finish. Spoiler. Um, I finished the Punch-Win Little Gator game and the Callisto Protocol on here. Is that it? Yeah, I finished all of those this already in 2023. So they're going to be in a future post or future stream and talking about them. I actually did stream both of those games, part of them, not the whole thing. Yeah, like I don't know, River City Girls 2, Chained Echoes. I started Crisis Core, Final Fantasy 7 Reunion. That looked cool. I think this is the proper tag for this game. Oh, Super Kiwi 64. I already finished that already. I made up for a lot of late November, December games. Like I played through some of them um, in early January. So that's it. So see you next time in my top 10 games of 2022. Um, yeah, so that is my gaming in review for 2022. So again, we have like my coulda, woulda, shoulda. These were games that I did not play at all. Some of which I did not pick up. If I did pick them up, they just stayed sealed on my shelf, so they just never saw the light of day. These games easily could have made my top 10 or top 20 or an honorable mention if I happened to make time for them, but it just didn't fall that way. And I had all my pickups for the year. Those are physical pickups. My favorite ongoing like live service MMO game, still Destiny 2. I didn't actually pick a favorite pickup. I guess it would be um Cowabunga, the Cowabunga collection, Castlevania collection were cool. Maybe the band, you know what? It was this like lot, the Good Life stuff that finally showed up. I really like the coffee mug. I have it right now. I'm like drinking out of it right now. Um, the Bayonetta 3 collectors is cool. I love the Plague Tale. Xenoblade's always awesome. Those are my favorite pickups. Oh, what am I talking about? The Klonoa collection. It's a miracle this exists. Like that's probably my favorite pickup from 2022. Elden Ring's all right. So anyway, my best ongoing game, Destiny 2. My favorite DLC was kind of a tie between the Isle of Big Snacks from Bugsnax and the Shadows of Rose DLC from Resident Evil Village. And then we had all of my lost levels, which again were just games that I started last year, but I never finished them. They just fell by the wayside and were kind of lost to the year, if you would. Yeah, that was again, I wanted to do a few more categories, but that just didn't have the time to like kind of think them out or write them out properly. Maybe I'll do that. Maybe I'll like think ahead and sort of um approach this differently for 2023, but we'll see how the year goes since we're only halfway through January. Um but the top 10 honorable mention uh post will go up and I will stream it hopefully, like I said at the start of the stream, this Thursday night around the same time, likely, depending on when I can log off from work. And then that will be the end of 2022 discussions. So if you're watching this after the fact, I appreciate it. But until next time, see you all later. All right. Bye.